Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to our friends at Google. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Josh Gabelich. He's in for another week. We've signed him to another extension. He's hit a trigger, yes he has, for a third ep. But we've got plenty on the radar today. We're going to be looking at St Kilda. We're going to do a forensic deep dive into Adelaide's list build. All of your questions answered. Trade and draft news as well right the way through. But Josh, we want to start with the Saints, in particular 5 big players at the Saints, where we're going to be asking today, are they marching in or are they marching out with the Saints? Because that's been the question on everyone's lips. So let's go through them. We'll start with the big one, which is clearly Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. It's the same as it ever was with Naz at the moment. He's playing great footy, but no one knows where he's going. Port Adelaide doesn't know. Adelaide doesn't know. St Kilda doesn't know. If anyone tells you they know where Nasiah is going or what he's doing in 2026, they are lying to your face right now. So Port Adelaide has gone all in. We've said this a couple of times now. Port's chips are on the table with Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Adelaide's also made an enticing offer. St Kilda's doing everything it can to try and keep him to stay at the Saints in 2026. But what I will say about St Kilda is it's getting late now. It's a crucial 11 days, Josh, before their season ends. And I think if the decision isn't made in the next 11 days, while hope has sort of fluctuated between he's going to stay, he might leave, who knows? If he doesn't make a decision in the next 11 days, I think it's going in one direction. So that's the watch at the moment with Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Cal Wilkie, he's been the man on everyone's lips across the last couple of weeks. Does he leave? I don't think so. But clubs have known for more than a week now that Cal Wilkie is potentially gettable. It's been doing the rounds for a while now. Personally, it's hard to see him leave, given he's got that contract until 2027. But he has been unsettled by a range of things, which his coach Ross Lyon has touched on this week when he's been speaking to media. It's not a storm in a teacup necessarily, I don't think, with Cal Wilkie, but because clearly the club's belief from around the competition that he was gettable came from somewhere. But I think it is also one where it could be sorted out pretty quickly. I just wouldn't be shocked if within the next couple of weeks there's a contract extension on the table for Cal Wilkie and he's their captain going into 2026.
So he's contracted until 2027, so you expect potentially for longer than that with 2 years to run?
Yeah, potentially maybe you add on another year, you bump his pay a little bit, potentially you match it with Lecalier or go a bit above what Lecalier might get paid to go to that football club. He's their next captain though, there's no doubt about that.
Absolutely, and it could be as soon as 2026 as you touched on. What about Marcus Windhager? He's a name that just doesn't go away. He's had a 2-year contract offer from St Kilda on the table for some time. But clubs are monitoring his situation. What can you tell us?
They are. So there's a 3-club chase for Marcus Windhager at the moment. Melbourne, Essendon and North Melbourne, all the clubs chasing his signature. He's one of the more under-the-radar, uncontracted players heading into this year's trade period because clubs are chasing him and they're chasing him hard now because I think they really have a belief that he's gettable. 32 disposals, 9 marks and 6 tackles on Saturday against Richmond, one of St Kilda's best. There's a real watch on this one. I think particularly with Melbourne and Essendon on whether or not they might be able to get him out of there. The one thing that might go against them though is he is loyal to the core. And I think if St Kilda bumped up that offer, potentially longer term, potentially more money on the table, I think there's a chance he does re-sign. But I think for the way it sits at the moment, the offer that St Kilda does have on the table for him, I think that those 3 clubs that we just mentioned really think that Marcus Windhager could potentially be lifted out of St Kilda during this year's trade period. Jack Steele, the club's current captain, was made a substitute a couple of weeks ago. Where does his future sit, do you reckon?
Well, he's another fascinating name, isn't he, Riley? Because he's a name that won't go away. He won't leave St Kilda unless St Kilda wants him to leave. He's contracted for 2 more years. He's 29. If you look at his past 2 seasons, he's been dealing with injuries. He's a bit of a reluctant captain. He's been voted in for years now. He's comfortable with the responsibility of the leadership. But I think that might be a burden for him going forward. It might be the right time to hand over the baton to someone like Cal Wilkie. But the expectation right now is he remains at St Kilda beyond October. But he is a watch at this point because of the changing nature of that club. As is Rowan Marshall, been linked to Geelong for a long time, and with Dom De Koning expected to arrive, keep an eye on him in October.
Yes, has been linked to Geelong. All right, we mentioned before at the top of the show, we do want to take a deep dive into how Adelaide has built its list because they are a game clear on top of the ladder going into the final fortnight of the season. That's where we find the vision. That is the segment where we look at how clubs pitch to rival players. Now, Josh, we've done this for Carlton, we've done it for Collingwood, we've done it for Hawthorn. And when you put up your 2028 teams, I reckon for all of those clubs, there's been gaps. There's been gaps everywhere in terms of what the clubs are looking to fill before they get into a season that's 3 years in advance, in this case, 2028. But if you're looking at Adelaide, there's no gaps. They've built this list for sustained success. They've built it really over a long period of time now. And 13 of these 18 players that we've got put up on the board right now are contracted through to 2028 and are going to be hitting their best years into 2028. That's not to say that Adelaide doesn't think it can improve. And this is how it can improve, because this is what they will be hoping their 2028 team looks like. Only 2 changes, but Sam Draper going into the ruck, because we know they're looking at Sam Draper as a free agent at the end of the year. And clearly they've got interest in Nazire Wanganeen-Miller and want him to come into the football club. Every side in the competition would look better with Nazire in it at the moment, given how well he is playing. That is what Adelaide will hope its 2028 team looks like, with potentially more draftees going in there. So let's take a more of a forensic look. This is the back line, and they've built this. It's sort of with all due respect, it's a no-name back line, because none of these guys have been top picks besides Max Michelini, who is a first-round draft pick. But they've got players like Nick Murray and Mark Keane and Jordan Butts and Josh Worrell from later picks in the draft. From Mark Keane, they got him from Ireland, had a second-chance player. So they've built this back line. It's become one of the best in the competition. The midfield group, which we're about to see now, this is where you start seeing more of the high picks and more of the guys that they've brought in from other clubs. Jordan Dawson, Sid Draper, who was their number 4 pick last year. Isaac Cumming, they brought in from another football club. Dan Curtin, he was a top pick and has had a really good year. And clearly, they're looking at Sam Draper and Nazire Wanganeen-Miller to be in their midfield rotation going into next year. And then you look at their forward line, and their forward line's really strong as well from early picks. Darcy Fogarty, Riley Thilthorpe, Isaac Rankin, they brought in from another football club for a first-round pick. Josh Rochelle, he was another first-round pick in itself. 2 other players there, James Peatling and Alex Neil-Bullen, they got from other clubs. This is the result of targeted recruiting, Josh, and high draft picks that they've nailed over the last couple of years.
They have nailed their sell, haven't they? Yeah. I mean, you look at what they've brought in, and it's not just the players they've brought in, the culture they're building. Don't forget about Theberton. They are becoming a destination club. They've got a $100 million facility that's being built at the moment that will open in 2027, being driven by Tim Silvers, the CEO. If they're not already a destination club, they're about to become an even bigger one.
Yes, they are. So as you mentioned, this is the sell that they've got on offer for clubs, for players that are potentially looking at coming into the Adelaide Football Club over the next couple of years, like a Sam Draper or a Nazire Wanganeen-Miller. Fun football. They're the 3rd highest scoring team in the comp this year, and you have to look back only a couple of weeks ago to that showdown against Port Adelaide, where it was bucketing down rain. They still kicked 20-odd goals. That's just how attacking their football is. A young list. They're the 9th youngest list in the comp at the moment, which you might say middle of the range. It's exactly middle of the range. But that's including Taylor Walker. It's including Rory Laird. It's including Brodie Smith, who are coming towards the end of their careers and probably won't be at the football club in 2028. So they're only going to get younger as well. They're also built for sustained success. As we mentioned before, 13 players on that original team are contracted through to 2028. I think this is a lesson from 2017, where they sort of went chips on the table, tried to win the flag in 2017. It proved a one-off. Yes, there were mitigating circumstances around that, why it turned into a one-off, and a few players left the football club afterwards. But I think when they've been building this list, they've said, how do we ensure that if we get back to September, it's not a one-off? How can we do it for sustained success? As you mentioned, the lifestyle benefits. Theberton's one of them. But they've been selling to recruits a Geelong-like approach in terms of you can come here, it's a bit off the radar, you're not in the football mad confines of Melbourne, you're close proximity to beaches, close to farming locations, close to wineries, you can get off the grid a little bit easier than you can if you are in a footy mad city like Melbourne. And Adelaide, the city, not the club, is marketing itself as an events town. So you've got all those options for yourself now in Adelaide. It's a destination club. It's locked and loaded, it's ready to go, has all 3 of its first-round picks over the next couple of years. And don't forget about Nix's knack, Matty Nix, and what he's been able to do. They can get players, but they can turn players they draft late into good, solid role players. Look at Mark Keane and Josh Worrell. 18 months ago, no one was saying they were potential All-Australians. That's what they've turned them into this year.
Well, I just want to touch on that because the bargains have been a big part of this success this year. I mean, they've nailed their first-round picks of late. They wore a lot of heat for Fisher Mackesy, Justin Reid and Hamish Ogilvie, but look at what they've done with their bargain buys.
Look at the recruits.
Ben Keys has gone from being a delisted line to a Malcolm Blight medalist. Mitch Hinge has been a smash hit as a delisted free agent. And Mark Keane might be the best SP signing ever. Now, I know he started in a different way, but what he's doing down back, you look at their back line, it's stacked full of rookies, as you touched on. They are nailing their bargains as well as their first-round picks.
They certainly are. So you look at the early picks over the last couple of years. Darcy Fogarty at 12, Riley Thilthorpe at 2, Luke Pedler at 11, Josh Rochelle at 6, Dan Curtin at 8, Sid Draper at 4 last year. They're all going to be guns. We know that about Adelaide, so they've nailed those early picks. But as you mentioned, it's the bargains on this list. Even someone like a Jake Saligo, who they got to pick 36, has turned into such an important member of that midfield group. Josh Worrell, pick 28. That's that picks 20 to 40. You need to nail that in a successful rebuild, and that's exactly what Adelaide's done. It's funny how we spoke about St Kilda earlier, and they've had a lot of complaints this year around how hard it is that they've taken to the AFL, around how hard it is to build and rebuild naturally through a compromised draft, what they say. Adelaide's done that though. In the last 5 years, the draft's been arguably more compromised than it ever has been before. They don't have any academy graduates on their list. They've got one father-son in Max Michelini, but they've gone from worst to first. And yes, they haven't achieved anything yet. They haven't actually played a final yet, but they're a game clear on top of the ladder. And they're looking like they're a real premiership threat, not only this year, but in the years to come. And you have to think if they get Sam Draper and if they get Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller through the doors this October, they'll probably go into 2026 as premiership favourites as well, regardless of what happens this September. So as you mentioned, it's a win for patience as well in terms of their recruiting team. They were getting smashed from pillar to post a couple of years ago. It's a reward for development as well. And I think other clubs can take lessons from how Adelaide has built this list to be a game and percentage clear on top of the ladder with a fortnight to go in the season.
I'm with you. They are built for sustained success.
Anyway, that was the vision. There we go. Bring it back up. All right, Josh, let's get back to the desk because we do have one more segment to get to here today on Gettable, and it is one of our favourites, basketball. That is where you ask the questions and we answer them. Don't forget, get in touch with us on our Instagram account. That's @Gettable. We will try and answer as many of your questions as possible.
I got the first one, Riles. Hot Pies Army wants to know, does Jack Silvani end up at the Pies?
Well, big development with Jack Silvani over the last week. He has now met with the Western Bulldogs, which is the third rival club he has met with. So, as we know, he met with Collingwood and Fly. Craig McRae was very open about that. He's met with Brad Scott as he weighs up interest from Essendon, but he has now met with key and senior figures at the Western Bulldogs across the last week. I said last week I thought the Western Bulldogs were some way back in this mix. I think there's confidence growing at the Bulldogs. I still think Collingwood has its noses in front, but I don't think it's as significant as it was maybe a week or two ago when he first met with Craig McRae and figures at Collingwood. I think that gap now is potentially closing, although if I was to call it, I still think Collingwood is the favourites here. All right, Nick wants to know, what's the latest at the Eagles, Josh?
Well, Job Shanahan, Riles, has been a revelation in his first season. Come on really strong in the back end of the year. Picked 30 last year at Moama. Kicked 3 goals on Sunday. Has really been a shining light. He's about to lock in a 2-year extension, which will take him through until 2028. He's the last of last year's draft class to re-sign, but he is the one that is showing so much growth in 2025.
I think there's a lot happening at the Eagles in terms of Harley Reid, and I think that's affecting a few clubs in Victoria as well, potentially trying to keep assets to know exactly what Harley Reid's plans are going to be towards the end of the year. They've also got some decisions to make in terms of free agency because Oscar Allen, as we mentioned, their co-captain, no one knows what he's going to do going into 2026. We think Brisbane is leading the race for him. But then the Eagles also have some interest in Brandon Starcevic, and it's an interesting one here in the sense of how do they go about potentially acquiring Brandon Starcevic if he does want to go home back to WA? Clearly, clubs in Melbourne want to take a look at Brandon Starcevic as well. We've mentioned Essendon and North Melbourne on the show, but they wouldn't want to dilute the potential compensation for Oscar Allen as a free agent if he does depart and go to Fremantle the other way, because that could potentially net the Eagles pick number 2 in addition to pick number 1. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well.
Got a draft question for you from Paul. Any pick number 1 updates?
Well, Willem Dersma certainly didn't hurt his chances of being the top pick in this year's draft on the weekend, playing for Casey in the VFL. He was arguably best on ground. 20 disposals, 6 marks, 6 intercepts, 4 tackles. It's followed a really good period now for Willem Dersma because he was probably best on ground in that last championships game for Vic Country against Vic Metro. In fact, he wasn't probably best on ground. He was by far the best on ground in that game. He was absolutely fantastic. So I think he's going to be right in West Coast mix, and they're going to have the number 1 pick in this year's draft, provided they don't trade it. We don't think they will. But he's going to be right in West Coast mix. The names we've already mentioned, Cooper Duff-Tyler, Dyson Sharp, Zeke Uland, Dill Patterson, Dan Annable and Josh Lindsay, all still right in that mix as well. But I think Willem Dersma is coming with a bullet. Clubs love what he's been able to do, and to play like that in senior footy for Casey on the weekend was a big step forward in his development as well.
Let's stick with the draft because Tyson's got a question around any draft bolters in this crop right now.
Well, we love a mature ager here on the show, don't we, Josh? And Harry Scott, I reckon, is a name to keep your eye on. So we know Richmond's had 8 of their VFL players end up on AFL lists, and most notably it was Tom McCarthy who went pick 1 in this year's mid-season draft. I think Scott now is right in the mix to potentially be a late pick, even a rookie this year. He's right in the mix as well for the Fothergill Round Mitchell medal as the best young player in the VFL, and we know the recent history in terms of the winners of that medal going on to end up on an AFL list. He's only only 20 years old. He's a 191 centimetre midfielder. He's moved into the midfield more often in the last couple of months, where he's averaged 25 disposals, 5 tackles and 4 clearances. He's getting a lot of buzz in amongst AFL clubs. Interestingly enough, his dad, Alistair, played 19 games for Richmond in the 1990s, so there's some ties to the Tigers there. But a couple more to look out for, particularly the Eastern Rangers that are getting some buzz. Oscar Taylor, 182 centimetre running defender. He's sort of getting a lot of attention now from clubs back half of the year. And Marcus Krasnodemskis, who Cal Toomey wrote about in Inside Trading about a month ago now, 202 centimetre ruck, and with the lack of tools in this year's draft, come from a basketball background, only developed late. I think he's one to watch. But there's also been some late invites sent out to the Combine, Josh. What can you tell us there? 19
more players, Riles, have been invited to the state combines in October, including Archie Dolman, who's a great story. He was cut by the Oakley Chargers in the pre-season, but dominated at St Kevin's level in the APS to the point where the Chargers invited him back mid-season. He's played 4 Coates Talent League games and starred. So he's a one to watch at the back end of the year because he's got a bit of buzz out there. A few clubs are sitting down with him in the coming weeks. So Archie Dolman, one to watch. As is Rod Ali. We spoke a lot about him ahead of the mid-season draft. He met with Collingwood, Gold Coast, GWS, and he's one of the late invitees as well.
He certainly has. Hawthorn Zone wants to know who is the next to be locked away for the Hawks, because last month they locked away Jai Newcomb through until 2032. On Tuesday we reported that Nick Watson had signed until 2029. Who's next?
Well, Dylan Moore is one we've discussed as well on this show, Riles. I think it's pretty close to a 4-year extension. Jack Gunston's the other one. Talks have started on him for 2026. He hasn't been in any rush to do this. Despite his great form at the age of 33, he's had to really think about what next year looks like, because this year expected to spend a fair bit more time playing at Box Hill than he has, given his form this year now that he's in All-Australian contention.
He's been a remarkable story this year, Josh, given what he's achieved and what the expectations were on him going into the year, left out of that opening round game against Sydney as well. Like no one thought he'd be doing this. He's going to be such an important player in their mix. As we've mentioned with Hawthorn, they've got a lot of guys out of contract in 2026. Nick Watson and Jai Newcomb were 2 of them. Dylan Moore was another. So it's no surprise they are getting a head start in those, is it?
They are, because of what they want to do.
Yeah.
They want to get their 2026 crop out of the way so they can be quite aggressive, not just next year, but this year, of course.
To Harley Reid, Zach Butters.
Those sort of types.
All right, now, Josh, Google Gemini is our personal AI assistant and a great help for sharing ideas and answering questions. The key question in this one will be relevant to all of you viewers in the coming weeks. Check it out. Hi, Google Gemini. Remind me, when is the 2025 AFL trade period?
The 2025 AFL trade period is scheduled for October 6th to 15th. Are you interested in any particular teams or players?
I'm keen to see what Carlton does.
Carlton is a team that's always interesting to watch during the trade period. They've made some big moves in recent years. Are there any specific players you're hoping they'll go after?
I hope they'll go after Ollie Florent. What do you reckon?
Ollie Florent is a really talented player. He's got speed and can kick goals. Carlton could definitely use someone like that. Do you think they'd be willing to give up enough to get him?
Certainly hope so. Thanks, Google Gemini.
No worries. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
There you go. Do you reckon Ollie Florent's going to be on Carlton's radar this year?
I thought you'd raise him.
They're going to be an interesting watch, the Blues. Obviously, they've parted ways with their football boss, Brad Lloyd. There's going to be some names that come into the mix at Carlton over the next couple of weeks in terms of how they restructure their football department. So they're going to be an interesting watch over the next month or so going into that trade and draft period. And Graham Wright speaking earlier this week around how aggressive they want to be and how they need to improve their list. So watch out. Plenty more to come on that space. And you can find all of that news on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app. Josh, I just want to say a massive thanks to you. You've stepped into the chair over the last month with absolute precision. You've been a great help to us, so thank you heaps, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Riles. Good to be here.
You can find all of Josh's work on afl.com.au. Thanks for tuning in. A big thanks to Google as well, and we'll see you next week on Gettable.